What if the Black Death had never reached Europe? This is a question that has been asked by historians, sociologists, and economists for centuries, and it's one that continues to captivate the imagination of many. The Black Death, also known as the bubonic plague, swept through Europe in the 14th century, killing an estimated 25 million people and altering the course of history in ways that are still felt today. But what if this catastrophic event had never taken place? How different would Europe have been? The first and most obvious answer is that Europe's population would have been much larger. Without the Black Death, it is likely that the population would have continued to grow, and this would have had far-reaching consequences. For one, it would have meant that there would have been more people available to work the land, and this would have likely led to increased agricultural production. In turn, this would have driven down the price of food, making it more affordable for the average person. The growth of cities in a world without the Black Death would have had significant impacts on the development of new industries and technologies. With a larger population, there would have been a greater demand for goods and services, which would have provided opportunities for entrepreneurs to create new businesses and for existing businesses to expand. This increased economic activity would have spurred technological innovation, as businesses would have sought to improve their production processes and reduce costs. One of the industries that would have likely experienced significant growth would have been textiles. The textile industry was one of the most important industries in medieval Europe, and it was a major source of employment and economic growth. Without the Black Death, it is likely that the textile industry would have continued to expand, leading to the development of new technologies such as the spinning wheel and the water-powered loom. These new technologies would have increased the efficiency of textile production, making it possible to produce more cloth in a shorter amount of time, and this would have driven down the cost of textiles and made them more accessible to a wider range of people. Another industry that would have likely experienced significant growth without the Black Death would have been mining. The mining industry was a major source of wealth in medieval Europe, and the demand for metals such as iron, copper, and silver was growing. Without the Black Death, it is likely that the mining industry would have continued to expand, leading to the development of new technologies such as the water-powered mine pump, which made it possible to extract minerals from deeper underground. This increased efficiency would have made it possible to extract more minerals, which would have driven down the cost of metals and made them more accessible to a wider range of people. While the growth of cities would have had significant benefits, it would have also created challenges such as overcrowding and a strain on resources such as housing, food, and water. With more people living in the cities, there would have been a greater demand for housing, and this would have led to a scarcity of available homes. This would have likely driven up the cost of housing, making it difficult for many people to afford a place to live. To address this issue, new systems for the distribution of goods and services, as well as new forms of government, would have likely been developed. The need for more efficient systems for the distribution of goods and services would have led to the development of new transportation networks, such as roads, bridges, and canals, making it possible to transport goods more quickly and efficiently between cities and rural areas. This would have made it possible to move food, water, and other resources into the cities, easing the strain on these resources and improving the quality of life for residents. In addition, the need for more efficient systems for the regulation of goods and services would have led to the development of new forms of government, such as city-states and merchant republics. These new forms of government would have provided greater stability and security, and they would have given merchants and entrepreneurs a greater say in the decisions that affected their lives. This increased participation in government would have helped to spur economic growth and create a more prosperous society. Another consequence of the Black Death's absence would have been the preservation of the feudal system. The Black Death decimated the European population, creating a labor shortage that allowed workers to demand higher wages and better working conditions. This, in turn, eroded the power of the feudal lords and gave rise to a new class of merchants and entrepreneurs. If the Black Death had never taken place, the feudal system would have remained intact, and the economic and political power would have remained in the hands of the landed nobility. One of the most significant changes that would have resulted from the absence of the Black Death would have been the course of the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a period of cultural and intellectual awakening that took place in Europe in the 14th and 15th centuries, and it was fueled by the growth of the cities and the emergence of a new merchant class. If the Black Death had never taken place, it is likely that the Renaissance would have been postponed or even prevented entirely, and this would have had far-reaching consequences for the development of science, art, and culture in Europe. Finally, it is worth considering the impact that the Black Death had on religion in Europe. The Black Death was seen by many as a divine punishment, and it led to a resurgence of religious fervor and a new focus on spirituality. Without the Black Death, it is possible that Europe would have remained a largely secular society, with religious institutions playing a less prominent role in people's lives. In conclusion, the absence of the Black Death would have had far-reaching consequences for Europe and the world. From population growth and economic prosperity to the preservation of the feudal system and the course of the Renaissance, the impact of this catastrophic event cannot be overstated. While it is impossible to know exactly how different Europe would have been without the Black Death, one thing is certain: its absence would have created a very different world from the one we know today.